Good evening, everyone. My name is Jason Pauls, and I'm the Director of Advancement for the Southwestern Region for Syracuse University. On behalf of the university and the Office of Multicultural Advancement, I'd like to welcome you to CBT's Men's Orange Roundtable. Our program will be informal discussion on various topics, everything from physical health and finance to faith, and the upcoming election is on the docket. You can submit questions for the panel using the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. We try to get to as many as we can. Our panel will be introducing themselves. I would like to welcome them all. And now we'll hand things over to our moderator, a corporate strategy and business development executive, Jesse Mejia.
Mi gente, I hope everyone is doing fantastic. And for the record, before we got started, I told Jason my last name is spelled Mejia, and he got it wrong, but that's okay. He told me he only took French and is not really down with the Latinos like that. But you know what? This is CBT, and we all come together because we all speak one language, and that's the language of the orange. So Jason, thank you very much, my man. It's an honor to be here with you. I want to take a moment to thank Jason and his team, and of course, for those of you that may not know, Rachel Vassell. Rachel is an inspiration, because when she took over CBT, she literally transformed what it was to what it is. And because of her, we're able to do things in an innovative way that represents the Black and Brown individuals of Syracuse University. And to her, we thank, to the Office of Multicultural Affairs, we thank all of you. And Jason, again, my sincere thank you for you to help us lead tonight's engagement. So everyone, I have a star-studded panel to share with you. Our topic for the evening is basically the life of men. And we're going to get into it. We're going to talk about a variety of things that impact our lives, our community, our families, and our careers. And to kind of share with you who we have, I'm going to ask everyone to take a moment and introduce themselves. And just to keep it brief, name, when you graduated, and major, please.
My name is Frankie Gonzalez. I graduated in 1995 from Maxwell and the School of Arts and Sciences with majors in political science, public policy, minors in economics and Spanish.
Thank you, Frankie. Brian.
How you doing, everybody? Brian Tarrant, class of 1996, and a sociology major. Yes, that's right, sociology.
Hey.
I found something to do with it.
Yes.
Adolphus Belk, please.
Hey all, my name is Adolphus Belk Jr., a member of the class of 1997, and I double majored in political science and African American studies.
Thank you, Doctor. Ronald Taylor.
Good evening, everybody. Ronald Taylor, graduated class of 2015 with a double major in political science and policy studies with a minor in African American studies. Then also graduated from the School of Education in 2016 with my master's in secondary education for history education, grades 7 through 12.
Tony Martinez.
Hey everyone, Tony Martinez, 89, public policy.
Thank you, sir. Travis Mason.
Travis Mason, class 2006, public policy, political science, and math as a minor.
Thank you, Travis. Oz Ortega.
Hey everyone, I'm Oswaldo Ortega, call me Oz, class of 2005. I graduated from the School of Architecture.
Thank you. Angel Mohammed.
Good evening, Angel Mohammed here, a proud graduate of the class of 1986 from the Whitman School accounting major. I'm representing all the cool people from the 80s, one of the coolest decades.
And again, Mr. Wes Diaz.
Wes Diaz, glad to be here. This is the representative of the class of 1974, political science major.
All righty. So
a vet with 3 T's.
There we go. All right, gentlemen. So let's get into this. While Jason and his team figure out how to get our cameras on, that's not going to stop us from actually having an incredible conversation. And in the spirit of having an incredible conversation, let's take a ride down memory lane. Do you gentlemen remember your very first Shine Underground party?
So let me start on that. This is Wes, because there wasn't a Shine when I was there.
I knew you were gonna yuck my yum.
However, I will ask, since it was a party, I'll interject that I am still in touch with folks I met my freshman year, first day on campus 50 years ago.
Wow.
There are folks who we
Fantastic.
still talk. They're part of this CBT experience. They've been online. I'll give a shout out to Joe Cruz as one of those folks I first met. Steve Moses. I mean, we're still there. So the bond of orange that would have been forged through that Shine party, the first party, was forged just by virtue of us being on campus, seeing the faces and exchanging fellowship immediately upon meeting. So it was great.
Well, Wes, it is no secret that you're one of the reasons why many of us have had the success we've had. So thank you for that. Now, to the rest of
Hey
the
guys, this is Tony Martinez. Same thing. When I was there, it was just built and completed, and the underground wasn't the underground. It was called the Milky Way. And
The Milky Way.
we went to, yeah, and the parties would go till 4 a.m. And it was a good time. Let's just leave it at that.
The Milky Way.
All right. How about the rest of you guys? Let me hear from the younger guys. Ronald and Oz, talk to me about your first experience at the underground.
At all. So as a freshman, I was able to actually go to the Shine. I guess I am that young. Thanks everyone. But I would say it was absolutely just a mind kind of blowing experience. I remember seeing all the frats strolling and all that kind of stuff, and just being really impressed. And then hence I ended up kind of becoming one. But I think it was just a lot of intensity and fun is from what I recall.
Yeah, so I guess I can chime in a bit too. My first time in the underground was for a Jabberwock celebration from the Deltas, or the annual showcase that they had put on for the campus. And so it was always a good place to go, not only just like for events on campus, but then also just to just learn about people. So my freshman year, that was like the first event that I went to, because my mother was very strict and I was not allowed to go to any parties my fall semester freshman year. And I listened, so I didn't fully understand that I could be my own person in college.
Well, thank you, Ron. Appreciate that. All right, so now I think our cameras are on. So we're good now. All right, excellent. So now we got all the people on the screen. So I think we're cooking with orange oil. All right, gentlemen. Now let's get into some more of our fun topics. Let's talk about fatherhood for a little second. For those of you that are not yet dads, that's okay. But for those of you that are, let's talk about first of all, let's take a step back and talk about number of children you have and their ages right now. Frankie, I'll start with you.
Wow, fatherhood. There's so much to be said about fatherhood. In fact, I'd probably consider it the most purposeful aspect of my life. I have two sons. My eldest boy's name is Mason. He's 12 years old. My younger boy's name is Donovan. He's 11, and my daughter is 7 years old. Her name is Galina. And I come from a really tight-knit family, so it's been really the honor of my life to raise these children and learn so much from them and gain so much from them. I mean, I have to say it's probably the single most purposeful aspect of my life. So I enjoy fatherhood immensely. I love it.
Adolphus, jump in there for me.
I am married to the former Miss Monica Campbell, class of 1996 at Syracuse University. And We got married in 2010, so it's been 10 years now. Our daughter, Nia, was born in 2013. She's 7. Our son, Nathaniel, was born 17 months later. He is 5.83, and they are a handful. They fight the power, but the only power they have to fight right now is ours. So they are a handful, but we love them dearly.
That's right.
I'll jump in, Brian Turan again. This is one of those topics where, man, if there's ever a time I might cry, it's this. When you talk about your children, what an amazing gift. I mean, Frankie, just listening to what you said. I mean, honestly, I'm almost kind of embarrassed to follow that because what you said is perfect. It is definitely the greatest accomplishment of my life. I waited a little late, so to Oz and Ronald, be careful waiting until you're 40, homie, because there's positives to doing it when you're young and positive when you're older. When you're old like me, at least you're kind of set in your career and you have the finances to take care of them, but you have zero energy. So my wife and I we're extremely tired all the time. I have a 17-year-old stepson that I love as my own, and then I have 2 daughters that are 7 and 5. So just touching off what Adolphus said, it's amazing, but it's some days they smell blood in the water and they eat you alive.
Yeah, everyone. Oh, I just wanted to sort of add to that because I just had mine. He's 19 months. Absolute blessing and a lot of joy. I'm actually in my office is AKA his like changing room. He's in here right now being changed as we speak. Blessing me with the aroma of greatness. But I would say I think it's been interesting to kind of balance my ambition with my love for my son, right, and my wife. So it's been an interesting challenge, and I think with everything that's been happening this year, it's actually been a hidden blessing to kind of spend all this time with him. So it's been pretty interesting.
All right. So,
This is Injil. I like to chime in, Injil Muhammad. Fatherhood is, and I concur with everything that was said thus far, and I agree completely. It's a very serious job. But I have 2 children. My wife and I, Michelle, who's also a graduate of Syracuse University in 1987. My daughter, Sade, is 29. She's a graduate class of 2012. And we have a son who's a senior. He's 20. He's a senior at Harvard University. So I got a lot of training because I had, I think, what I call the greatest dad in the world. My father's a very, very serious man. Actually, he used to, he was one of the early members of the Nation of Islam in New York, and he traveled extensively with Malcolm X. So he's always taught me a lot of stories about Malcolm and manhood and fatherhood. But I find being a father, you almost learn more than you teach. My children have taught me a lot. You think you know the answers, but you kind of have to, I guess with the love that you have for them, you learn. You love and learn, but fatherhood is important. You have to be a provider, a protector, and you have to be real. They got to see you. They got to know you, and you got to be real. So big time job. We can go on all night about that one, but I know we have to get on to other topics.
we will, but let me ask the follow-up question on that. As men of color, how do you view fatherhood in today's environment? And how do you instill certain values or certain self-defense mechanisms to just ensure that we continue to thrive? And I just want to pause for a second. I said thrive, not survive, but thrive in this economic world that we live in.
Let me tackle that again. This is Injil again. I mentioned the word protector. The first thing you have to do with children is that obviously you have to love them, but they have to have confidence. A father, I think, provides confidence for his children. And you have to be able to make sure they know who they are. Because in the world that we live, our lives are not valued as much as they should be. So you loved at home, but you have to make sure you let them know what they may face when they get out. But to thrive, you have to have self-confidence and self-love and know that people have your back. But you have to have a realistic conversation with them about what they're going to face. We don't want to focus on other people too much. You have to build yourself. You build yourself up, connect with the creator, and move out and go forward.
I'd like to add to that. I think when we're talking about being that father, which is the subset of being a parent, it's really, well, my version of it is empowering my children. And the empowerment is such that they're able to learn, become confident, become self-reliant, but also a resilience. Because once they're outside of the house, even as small children, they're under attack for as long as they're outside of the house. So as one of the older members, I'm at the grandfather stage, right? So now you're looking at the end result of what you were trying to accomplish before. And, you know, there are things that you can say, well, I'd like to tweak this, tweak that. But recognizing the uniqueness of each person that you're dealing with, because in my case, I've got 2 kids, young people, very different, extraordinarily different. And so the interaction was very different. You know, one, she needed to hear the long version of why something couldn't happen. The other one just wanted bottom line, either it's happening or it's not. You know, and you had to understand, don't try to give the one who wants the bottom line the long story, because then she starts rolling the eyes, and now
It had to be a she. It had to be a she, right?
Well, you know, I should say it's two. I started out with the mindset of we have 2 females, right? It's a blended family too. It's a little bit. I was glad to hear the mention of a step parent. I don't even use that phrase. You're either the father or you're not, kind of thing. And, you know, it is what it is. But you've got this perspective of they're looking for you for answers, but also, I think, looking for process. How do we handle the circumstances when it's not family? You know, how do we address the challenges that are coming? And in our particular environment, because no matter how successful parents are, our children start at ground zero again, right? It's almost like they're having to reinvent the wheel. So you try to give them the advantage of not having to really let society push them at zero again, but then you're also letting them know, no matter what you do, and it really is about unconditional, I'm always here to help you fight the fight, right? But most of their time alive, they're away from you. So you have to give them tools and power and a sense of self so that they make quality decisions for themselves. And that's a transitional process, you know, where you give them ever increasingly greater responsibility, even though you don't necessarily like it, you know, but you realize at some point, you're not going to be on the scene at all. And they're going to have to be able to withstand an onslaught that's astounding. So
Thank you, Wes. Thank you. And I saw Adolphus try to get in and then Angel.
Yeah, I think about that that mortality bit a lot. You know, growing up in East New York, Brooklyn in the 80s and 90s, when I lost people, it was to gun violence. It's pretty random. Now, as someone in his mid 40s, losing people to things like heart disease and cancer. Shout out to Melvin Mason, class of 1996, and Ramir Green, class of 1997. When I think about raising children in this environment as a Black man, my children, the world is light and love. They don't meet strangers. Everyone's a friend. They are genuine, good souls. And I'm trying to let them ride that out as long as they can, knowing just how awful the world can be in general and how terrible it can be for us. So I'm not trying to burden them with my experiences, but as Wes was suggesting, I'd like for them to be able to learn from my experiences so they don't have to take those lumps. And as parents, my wife and I want to raise our children to be smart, strong, self-aware, compassionate, but no one's full. That's the objective, and we work on that every day. And as they've gone out into the world, started elementary school, it's already involving a process of resocialization. As people, as members of a society, we undergo this process of socialization first with our families, but then it continues in schools, through the press, through different cultural experiences. And I think about what Doc Rivers said in the NBA bubble. It's sometimes hard to love a country that doesn't love you back. And that resocialization is already happening with our children, where they're learning certain things in school. And I'm like, hey, let me pull your coat. That's not really how it is. And we're trying to provide that balance so that they can be self-aware and move through the world with some confidence. And finally, one of the points that Jesse raised in his question was doing this as men of color in this economic environment. One of the things that we know about people of color when they do somehow advance is that that status is pretty precarious, that people can fall back in the space of one generation. So when I think about my parents, my father was a high school graduate, then got drafted and went to Vietnam. My mother dropped out of high school to move to New York to help an aunt raise children that she was physically unable to take care of. Then she got her GED because she said, I can't talk so much about the value of education and I didn't finish high school. So I have to model this for my son. I have a PhD now. It took my family forever to get to that point as the first person in my family to earn a doctoral degree. And when we look at the data on Black and Brown advancement, it's our children end up falling backward. And so part of what you want to do is to build up within them a sense of confidence, a sense of purpose, encourage them to pursue various interests, and let them understand that they have a legacy and a responsibility to build on what's been established. You have to be careful with it, but at the same time, you must impress it upon them.
And ladies and gentlemen, this is why we call him Dr. Belk. And Joe, you want to say something?
I commented, but I just want to echo what everyone is saying, is that you have to leave a legacy and you have to make sure they build upon what you establish, but you also have to leave them some instructions and leave them some money if you can. Make sure that you understand the financial game, and because a lot of times we're behind and we get set back is because we don't understand the money game. So make sure you're leaving them life insurance. Make sure you're leaving them property without any visitors, meaning no banks, property free and clear. So we have to think, beyond just our children, even your grandchildren. So I know we have other topics, but the point is to, communicate with them. The gentleman mentioned earlier, he said that you don't want to let your children know the experience. I took the opposite view. I always let my children know where they stand and how they perceive in society, but not to internalize that, to prove that it's wrong, because you want them to be prepared for what they're actually going to face. So we pretty much always had a real conversation about who you are, but how other people may perceive you and how you plan for that. Because, like, for example, I was driving in the rain today, it was pouring. You want to make sure that if your children are going out in the rain, you got to show them how to drive in the rain, because it's not always going to be sunny outside. So you have to show them, how do you drive in the rain? So that's just my take.
Hey guys, I want to also add to that, that for me, I have an 8-year-old, and one of the things that I started early is what this brother just said in terms of making him understand the finance game, which we don't do early enough, which we kind of got in late on. And also to just really, again, besides being an honest and compassionate person, you know what I mean, and living that type of life of integrity, like you start to instill that type of value in them, and I'm sure we all do, but also for him to start making some basing some points of views and opinions based on evidential facts, because we as men of color, we have kids that may be coming up in systems that are already teaching them, again, like that there's this race that's superior to you, that gets all the credit, you know what I mean? There's these religions that, like, this is what you should believe. And again, I don't want to knock anyone's religion, but I'm just like, listen, okay, your grandmother got this statue, that's wonderful, but like, we got to talk about, you know, the reality and the proof and the history. And again, sometimes he's little and he's looking at me like, what are you talking about? But I want to still have these conversations with him early, still try to give him alternative information, you know, based on, again, now that he's starting to learn history and learn who's contributed what to society, so that he doesn't start feeling inferior or doesn't feel as worthy because he doesn't see images that don't reflect him.
Yeah, can I just remind everyone who's enjoying this show here to use the chat feature to ask any question that you'd like, so we can share that and get that question to the panelists. And
I'm sorry, Jason. Go ahead, Jason. Sorry.
Yeah, I just want to say, in terms of this question, it's a great question. It's one I personally take to heart as a son of a single mom. I grew up around 11, not my brothers and sisters, but 11 members in my community. We had a small, real small community. We had one family who had a higher education degree, and our parents beat in our heads, get your education. All 11 of us got our degrees. Majority of us have our secondary degrees. 3 of them have doctorate degrees. And what we need, what I always say is about your community and who you're with. I see a lot of strong, positive brothers right here. And what I always try to do is interject my 3 kids into this. See powerful, positive Black folks so that they can learn, and from watching and being around. To me, that's super important. So I just wanted to chime in and say that, but real good conversation. Go ahead, Brian.
No, I just wanted to jump in because this is an opportunity for me to learn and hearing Mr. Muhammad talk and Wes talk. One of the questions I have, because I know I had that moment growing up in a predominantly white area where the first time someone says something about race and I was not armed how to defend myself with that. So, and now having a wife and a family that's mixed race and having mixed race children, now I struggle with, when is the appropriate time to start having that conversation? And I look to you two because obviously you guys have older children. So no disrespect to any of the rest of the people on the panel, but I always look to people who have children that are successful and older. We may all think we're doing a great thing when our kids are 16 and 17, but until your kids are 28 and out of the house and living on your own, you really don't know if you did the right stuff or not. So I look to you two gentlemen and ask, when did you start having those conversations with your children to prepare them for, when the world starts showing its true colors?
For me,
I'll jump in and say right away.
Yeah, right away. Yeah.
But the technique changed. So when they're infants, the message was, you're beautiful, you're smart, you're strong, right? As they get older, or what they're picking up on at that point is, you're reliable, you're dependable, you're bringing love to them, I can depend upon you. As they can comprehend the words, you start changing it, right? And it becomes, you are a Black young girl, you are beautiful as you are, whatever that may be. Because even when people are complimenting your children, they can be bringing some issues that are sensitive. So in my case, you've got a woman who's Black, she's African American, however, her mother's Japanese. That leads to a certain genetic look. And so people will come to little girls who have that heritage and they bring certain issues that you want them to understand. All Black people need to be respected, and all Black people are beautiful. So you change as you move along, but you're always monitoring it because, again, they're going to be outside the home a lot, and folks will come to them with subtleties. And frankly, you watch whatever they read, we would read. Whatever TV shows they were watching, we'd watch, because we needed to be conversant in what mattered to them. And there were certain things we didn't let them watch, right? So, You just
So-
kind of start from the beginning, because the onslaught is at the beginning. When they go to the doctor's office, the doctor's going to bring their biases to them, right? So you have to be reinforcing and letting them know what we'll get to later in this panel, which is systemically, every part of America is trying to do you harm. That's where you're at.
Well, let's start pivoting, because we do have topics. And Angel, I'm sorry. I'll get you on the next one.
Yeah, I'm good. I'm not going anywhere.
Hey, see, that's why I love you. So we're going to talk about quite a few things. And I already see questions coming into the chat box. And there's a question out there that we promised we weren't going to play in the sandbox, but if we get thrown in there, we will. So, but to pivot off of fatherhood, we can't talk about that without pivoting into family and career and a provider. So to get some of we have various generations on this panel. So I want to bring in the generations that go from first job, second career to entrepreneurship, and kind of want to start with that. So to some of the younger alumni that we have on the phone, on the Zoom panel with us, talk to me about how did you set yourself out to aim high to pursue the career that you're in now? And then I'm going to pivot to, for those of you who have pursued a second career, when did you make that choice? So let's start with the younger folks now. How did you set your own ambition to say, this is what I want to do, this is what I want to pursue? Travis, let me jump with you.
Yeah, so I know others have amazing experiences. I was really blessed with opportunities, and I'd say the way I normally think about things is I try to go through doors that others won't even look at. I was speaking to a gentleman the other day, and he said, "Hey man, I know you worked at Google. I need a job at Google. I really want a job at Google." And I'm thinking to myself, like, man, there's Snowflake, Palantir just became public. I mean, there's so many things that sometimes we don't see, and we chase the things that we do see. And so recently, I just got done with a vice president position at Airbus. Most people don't even know what Airbus is. Most people don't even know kind of what Airbus does. But it was an amazing opportunity. And as I think back of how I got the opportunity, it was because I decided to go down a door that others really didn't understand or didn't know about. And so I think that's really important as you explore your career. It's been important to me. It's even important as I explore entrepreneurship, because everyone's like, I want to work for myself. And we automatically put ourselves in a box because of what we heard or what we think we ought to do. And so I've really tried in my career to not put myself in a box. My father grew up with humble means. I grew up with humble means. And the types of positions that he had, they were not in Black organizations. They were not all around African-American people. We lived in Southeast DC. So I went to a pretty segregated middle school and high school. And then I came home to a community that wasn't segregated at all. And my dad was essentially my first view of a politician. He was the first person that really taught me about other cultures. I remember as a young kid, he had friends who were Ethiopian, and I got to eat with my hands. And those were really early experiences for me as a kid to really chase some of the things that may seem uncomfortable to me or out of my zone. And that's really led me, I think, to some of the opportunities I've gotten. And I've had the pleasure and the blessing of having. So I would say, the most important thing is going down that road or opening that door that other people will not even think to explore or discover.
Thank you, Travis. Oz.
Oh yeah, I think that's an excellent point. And to sort of like get piggyback off of that, I believe for me, what I found to be successful is that I tend to have like a balance between either like a stretch experience where I'm trying to push myself into either like something new, as illustrated by Travis, while doing some sort of service work, right? Like I've had the fortunate, I say I'm originally from like New York City, in Brooklyn, first generation, everything, right? So everything has always been a stretch for us, right? In some degree. My career has been amazing. But it started off in DC. Now I'm in the Chi. I was in Shanghai for a bit, and then everywhere I go, I try to give back. What that allows me to do is not only grow sort of in a different direction, but it also allows me to stay kind of grounded. And then as I stretch, I'm realizing that I'm building advocates, right? So it's sort of like there's some doors that you just don't know exist, just because you're either really focused at your work, you're either really doing just whatever service work it is, and as you're doing excellent work, people see that and they say, you know what, like I'm gonna go ahead and make sure I recommend Oz for this, or you know what, Oz, look into this tomorrow, or do this and that, and then you start to build these, just like an army of just really good advocates, right? Especially in industries as my own architecture, where there isn't a lot of us, right? So you're always kind of trying to pull like someone else up, but then when you look up, there's usually 3 or 4 of us who's trying to pull me up, but the work has to match, right? So it's sort of like, my advice would be stretch and service.
Ron?
Yeah, just to kind of build off of what's already been said in many ways, I think that for me, being an African-American male in teaching in the K-12 space, of which this country, only 2% of the teaching force looks like me, is already an interesting situation to be in. But ultimately, what I always tell folks, I never decided to go into education and teaching. It essentially called me, especially when I think about the ways in which I was raised. On my maternal side, my grandparents were very connected to coal country Negro lifestyle from West Virginia. They migrated north to the city, New York City specifically. And so I had that legacy very present in my house, growing up. And so when you hear your grandfather saying you need to go to school in order to make this change, and when people physically say, the fate of a part of our family is resting on your success, I think for me, ultimately, that's kind of what put a lot of the drive behind my educational pursuits. What pulled me into education, specifically as a history teacher, was just really being disenchanted with most of my educational experience from K all the way through, I would say up until sophomore year of college, until I became an African-American studies minor, of just seeing history that was incomplete or inaccurate or ahistorical. And so I knew that I wanted to go into a field where I could speak truth to power and help young people realize who they are. For the folks that do anything with child psychology, we know that if we don't have positive interventions for Black and brown kids, particularly by 3rd grade, it has academic outcomes that affect the rest of their life. And so that work was so important to me, because if I can be a part of the work to provide mirrors for students to see that there's not this monolithic idea of Blackness, particularly, that's important. And now in my current space, working in an independent school where, if you watch any of the shows about typical independent schools in New York and the obnoxious amounts of wealth that is the place in which I work, but being in the position where, as the associate director of diversity, I'm informing how people with a lot of means, privilege, and access are thinking about the world. When I walk into a space and can help write equity policy, when I can assess teaching practices and say, you are actually perpetuating racist practices which are in direct conflict with this institution, that's work that's important for me, because ultimately that's doing the work of changing systems. And I think what keeps me to that work, to the vein that other people have said, is that I know that if I'm not in these spaces, I started off teaching in Central Harlem, the only certified history teacher, classroom of 40 kids, the whole 9, and moved over into the independent school space because it was pretty clear and obvious. The folks whose kids I look at every day write the checks that inform a lot of these systems. And so if I'm not in spaces where I can speak truth to power, then I'm ultimately, not being fully useful with my time. So that's what kind of led me to where I'm at. Family wasn't enthralled with the idea of me being a teacher because of all the, stereotypes around teaching, and I'm going to be broke the rest of my life. But what I will say, because I'm not sure who's, tuned in as far as participants, I think one thing that I really push, especially African-American educators, to remember is that we are the diamond in the rough when it comes to this field. And ultimately, we all the surveys and research show that when we are in a space, we're transformative, not only for Black and brown kids, but for white kids. And so at the end of the day, I found ways to make my profession do more than what the stereotypes might suggest.
Good
And
for
so
you,
ultimately,
Ron.
that's why I'm there.
Good for you, my man. I appreciate you saying that. Now we got to hear from the younger men on the panel, but for those of us, let's say, that are 20 years and older in our careers, we always get that one boss. We get that one individual that makes us say, I don't need this. I don't need you, and I can move somewhere else, because we have the confidence, the courage, the professionalism, polish, and poise to make a move. So for those of you that actually made that second career, we're going to jump into that for a second. But I cannot talk about the second career if I do not take a moment and actually acknowledge one of the participants, that's one of the attendees that's on this chat right now, that through him and his wife helped me make my pivot into my second career. And that is Keith Moody and Fatima Moody from LinkVism Consulting. Fatima Moody is one of the co-chairs for CBT. Keith and Fatima started LinkVism Consulting many, many years ago, and they are a federal government contractor. These two are a powerhouse. And when I had my moment, which I know many of you who are listening, you've had that moment when you had that boss that gave you the courage to say, I can do something different. I actually approached her, and I approached my Syracuse network, where I articulated, I had the confidence and the ability to be vulnerable, to say, how did you break in, and can you help me? And Keith and Fatima invited me to be a subcontractor with one of their contracts with the Department of Justice. And I just want to pause and say, when you break into an industry such as federal government consulting, your first gig is typically not with the Department of Justice. That door has to be opened by someone, and that's where my Syracuse network opened the door for me. So a big thank you and shout out to both Keith Moody and Fatima Moody, because I know Keith is listening right now. But to you men, to those of you that had that one individual that gave you the courage to switch, talk to me about how you positioned yourself for that second career.
I would say there were multiple inputs. I wouldn't reduce it to a binary thing. So hearkening back to the father piece, my dad always said, as a Black man in America, you need to be prepared to find yourself in a situation where you may need to tell them go to hell. So you need to save money in that go to hell fund. And so I always had that from a small kid, save some of your allowance, save whatever. So now as I'm working and you're making money and you're with the big consulting firm, right? And you're making money, you're traveling and you're excited, you're younger. And then you get that aha moment. You've got the salary and all the accoutrements of that lifestyle, but there's certain things that are changing, right? You're now working up on parenting. You're working up on missing certain things that your friends are doing. And then you're seeing power in its more stark forms, right? Having gone to Ivy League schools for advanced degrees, you see power in capital letters. Doesn't mean other forms of power don't exist, but it's a different set of power. And so now you're also, again, advancing yourself, and the notion of being mid-level isn't as appealing, because the people you're keeping company with, like Jason mentioned, they're looking at it from the perspective of investments and equity returns, not just your hourly salary, right? So that led to a small step where it became, you should have multiple revenue and you can be doing multiple things. So I've actually even taught online at the college level for a number of years at the University of Maryland. I got into that because I was approached by them because they were looking for people with federal government experience. They were looking for the credentials I happen to have. And so I could do that. And it was actually augmenting the work, the consulting work. So now you're getting an exponential return on your particular investment, in addition to building a stronger base. And then finally, frankly, you get to a point where you're simply ready to run everything from the top. And I think that's more just your unique characteristics. Some people want to run the operations, some really don't. They want to run the work. So I think you got to know who you are. And when you're ready, you find and craft almost like a tailor. You make something that suits you. Because if you don't want to miss the kids' third grade play, you can't be running in certain circles work-wise. That's just how it is. So make those decisions and you find you make what works for you. And I think the results are always are good ones, frankly.
You know, you said multiple revenue streams. That's
Yes.
that's the language of an entrepreneur.
Absolutely.
Tony, if you're with us, talk to us about multiple revenue streams, my man.
Again, like if you look at any wealthy person, you know, they have multiple streams of revenue, but in this society, you're kind of discouraged, you know, to do that, or you're looked at as crazy, the jack of all trades, but everyone needs those different streams of revenue, and laying the foundation, obviously. But again, like the way you get rich in this country is by being a business owner, being real estate, owning land, owning property, you know, and then the market, you know, so you have to be able to learn and be risky, especially when you're young, and you know, with your money, you know what I mean? So yes, you need to save, yes, you need to invest, but invest in yourself, create, you know, invest in stocks, invest in real estate, invest in developing your brand and companies. You know, I have multiple companies right now that like, luckily, and that's the other thing, you have to have synergies between them, but you know, you have to rely, you can't rely on just one stream of money. You can't, yes, okay, you have a great job, you're making 6 figures. What happens if COVID happens and you get laid off and you're furloughed? You know, it's like you have to be bulletproof, you have to be recession proof when it comes to your finances, you know, so don't be afraid to take chances, especially when you're young. You know, speaking to the young people in the that are on the call, that like this is the time, and this is the thing that they don't teach you in school. They train you to be an employee. They train you to go out into the work field, but they don't train you to be an entrepreneur. They don't train you to be a business person. So now that you have this connection to us that we didn't have when we were in school, you know, utilize those resources, you know, that we're willing to teach you guys and learn from our mistakes, you know, so that you can then lay a foundation for the next generation.
Good point. I want to chime in if I can. This is Jill. Great points. And one thing that COVID has reminded us is that unfortunately we're from the last hired, first fired community. It has
Very true.
Really reminded us of that. But I want to say this to the young people. I started my business at the age of 26. I actually was going to work on the New Jersey Turnpike, got off and never went back. And that was 30 years ago. All right. So, but here's the thing. A business person and a person, all of us are business people, regardless if you own your own business or not. The tax system is set up such that business people and employees are taxed the same. The people who are taxed differently are investors. So there's a different tax rate for investors. So what you want to do is make sure that your money becomes an investor, whether you have a job or whether you have your own business. Make sure your money becomes an investor, because how long can we work for money? Money has to work for us, and that's the switch that we have to we have to change. So like, as Tony mentioned, there's a network, so let's communicate, let's connect and pull each other up. And I really want to delve deep into that. I hope that we do that because, for example, we all watch Shark Tank. We watch the show Shark Tank, right? Imagine if the Syracuse community, I think there's 16,000 alumni of color, I think. Imagine if we all put up $1,000. We have a year to do it. That's $16 million. Imagine if the young people who have business ideas can come pitch their ideas to us to open up businesses and expand businesses. You know, I mean, 16 million is not a, you know, $1 billion, but it's a start. So we can have a chapter at Syracuse University and then replicate that across the country because we have to do for ourselves. Someone mentioned, I think it was Wes, who his father said that you have to have that go to hell fund. Yes, it's critically important, but the money has to be invested and we have to do for self. And again, COVID has reminded us seriously where we're so close to the edge. And we protect ourselves when our money is organized. Most of us, as we know, most of our money is not spent with one another. Every dollar we make, we spend 2 cents together. So our money stays in our community for about 6 hours, where other people it stays for 30 days and it circulates. So this is why we're behind. And though we have degrees and PhDs and these things are great, we have to really figure out how to solve our problem. And I think we need to get more in tune with the economic issues so that we can protect ourselves and protect our families.
So while we're protecting ourselves, go ahead, Jason. You want to say something on that?
Yeah, I mean, I just hear him speak in 100% truth, but I want to put a little plug into a program we do have at Syracuse University, where it's the Launchpad, it's Blackstone Launchpad, where students team up with other students around the university to pitch their ideas and pitch their businesses. Tonight, actually, one of our students will be on the Shark Tank. His name is Joseph Aviv. He won the competition on school, at school, and he's actually developed a portable solar pack that can be used to power your house or power your car. He's been a serious investor, so he'll be on Shark Tank tonight. And there's another student who just graduated last year, Kelsey Davis. She just moved to LA and she developed some type of, once again, over my head type stuff, but some type of software businesses that college students can use to actually make income while they're in school. So that is something that we do on campus for students who have that type of mindset. But I think part of that's the issue too, is having that mindset to be entrepreneurial and not just a worker bee.
Right.
So,
yeah, I just wanted to jump in real quick. And, I hear and I fully agree with the points about paper capital, but just a reminder that there's other capital. And I think, we don't have to look far for a lot of rich people who don't have a good mentality and a mindset to weather and to think about things in a new way when that's necessary. So I think I have a lot of little cousins, and a couple questions lately I begin is, oh man, what stock should I invest in? I said, man, you need to learn a language. You need to do some other things. There are other things that you can make an investment in, and in 10 years, it can not only get you more paper, but it can get you more network capital. It can get you more mental capital. So I just wanted to plug that, as Black men, we do a really good job at honing and making folks agree with the point about getting money to work with us, getting to work for us, getting money and investing, but investing in our mental capacity, investing in our physical health, investing in our mental health. That's something that I don't think we put enough weight on. And we're no good if we're rich, but we can't think of a new way or a new idea. We're no good if we're rich if our mental capacity isn't where it needs to be. I think that's the best gift that we can give to our next generation is not only a purse and full pockets, but a really great mind and a really healthy mind.
With Travis, that, if I could jump on that real quickly, I think we need to not get caught up in making life binary choices. We need to live dynamically. All of these things are relevant for all of us. We are economic engines of our own household. We're economic engines contributing to society. So yes, invest in ourselves, in our family members, in society. We need to be multi-layered simultaneously because that's where we're actually living. So absolutely, I hear you.
So gentlemen, in the time that we have remaining, there is a question from a student that I want to get answered. And Frankie, brother, I want you to answer this question, but I want to be mindful that we cannot hang up unless we talk about social justice as well. So Frankie, here's a question from a student, Gabriel Pripet. Hello all, I'm a junior currently at Syracuse majoring in civil engineering. This may be rather too specific a question, but when is too early to look into possible cash flows, such as investing for a young person such as me? Is during college too soon, or the earlier the better? Frankie, what's your take on that?
I'd say the earlier the better. I'd say, you know, people are very attracted to the concept of timing as it relates to finances. But I think I've learned over my years in the free market system that it's about time in, it's about time, it's about having assets work for you and giving purpose to your assets, your investable assets, and having that money work for you based upon your criteria over time. And, you know, and just hearing some of the comments made by some of the brothers on the panel here, you know, I agree with what Travis said about monetary reward. I certainly believe that there's all types of capital, spiritual capital, social capital, intellectual capital. And it's interesting how this question and these subjects are very similar. You know, as it relates, for example, to the election of a major in college, like the young man that just asked a question, just selected a major that's gonna give him audience. And I think that is really important for me in my specific circumstance, being a first generation Latino. My parents are both from Puerto Rico. They moved here in the 1950s. It was about assimilation. I was born in Brooklyn. I was raised in Chelsea. I was raised in the projects on the west side of Chelsea, the Elliott projects, and it was a terrifically diverse circumstance. I thought, you know, that I was just living in a diverse circumstance and didn't really come to terms with racism until I was in high school, attending a Jesuit military school in New York City that was founded maybe 20 years before Syracuse University, and came to the stark realization that there was a significant problem. There was a significant challenge that people weren't discussing. And of course, my parents were trying to cajole me into accepting assimilation because they were relatively new to the country, as many immigrants kind of think as they look to prepare their children to come out into the world. But looking at my particular professional circumstance, brothers, I have to tell you that when it comes to finance, like so many other facets of American life, I like to use the word esoteric. When I first started in the financial business, I was a pit boy working an oil pit in the New York Mercantile Exchange before computerization. We were still working in decimals. We were still working in fractions. When I started making markets in oil at Bear Stearns at the time, it was the 6th largest investment bank on the planet. There was no one to pull me up. There was no one that I could help pull up. It was just super esoteric. Wealth management, wealth creation, education, these are all things that are super important for us to help our children navigate, because it's chock full of pitfalls, chock full of disinformation. So wealth management, you know, getting to a point where you can start investing your money, I believe the young man's name was Gabriel, is something that you want to try to do often and early and throughout your entire life. Give money a purpose. Put money that should, you know, just be earmarked for operational purposes in your checking account. Keep emergency money, and all your other money needs to have purpose, needs to be working for you based upon your time horizon, your risk tolerance, and your financial objectives. But I would say it's incumbent upon all of us to try to crack the nut of the esoteric properties of our financial system as it relates to really manifesting ourselves as individuals, as people that uphold a fiduciary responsibility over a family, over a business. I think it's mission critical that we understand that as it relates to diversifying and mitigating our risk by way of diversification, having multiple modes of production, the way Tony referenced, having synergy between those modes of production so that you're diminishing your risks. It's actually what we call the modern portfolio theory for you economists out there, right? Diminishing our risks by way of diversification. Who has more risk, the guy with 500 restaurants or the guy with one restaurant? The guy with one restaurant, right? So Gabriel, I would say good job. Congratulations on electing a fantastic major. And good luck to you in making sure that you give your money purpose and that you understand the importance of time in. Not just being fascinated with timing the way so many American investors, especially so many younger investors, you know, could be about being involved in the capital markets.
Thank you,
And I
Frankie.
want to add to that too, Gabriel and all the other students on here, you know, two things that you have to always keep in mind is start saving money from your first paycheck to your last paycheck. And whether that paycheck is your company paying you or your job, because there's nothing wrong with having a job and having your side hustles, you know, because you still got to start somewhere. You know, but also, so always remember to save from the first check to the last check, no matter what it is, $10 or $100, doesn't matter. But get into that habit of saving some money that you, again, like Frank said, you reinvest in you and your ideas and opportunities that may arise. The other thing is everyone should have their own, like you are a brand, you are your own company. The way Brother Muhammad said that you create your own LLC so that you know how to work the tax system to write things off. You know what I mean? Like whether it's the gas or your dry cleaning, you know, like that's how people kind of wind up, you know, again, I don't want to say manipulating, but they know how to work the system to their benefit. So we're not good at that. We're good at, and then we owe the government money. It's like, how does that happen? No, we wind up owing them money. Like, no, figure out a way to get a nice refund based on your losses, you know, and that's, again, you creating an LLC or an S Corp that you're passing pass-through costs. So again, but these are things that you learn that we can't go into detail on this 1 hour panel, but it's to put those seeds in your head so that you can then now start investigating and doing your research.
So,
By the way, Jesse, just to wrap up one little thing that I would say to a new person, you know, considering the possibility of managing their investable assets, like Tony said, just start with spend, save, invest. Every time you receive money, what am I spending? What am I saving? What am I investing? That's the discipline. You ask yourself those questions, there must be answers. And as you separate and segregate your financial assets, you start giving them purpose, especially your investable assets. I think that's the way to do it. And just one other thing in relation to the earlier subject, you know, for all the younger folks looking at this that may be at Syracuse University currently, like I'm a member of La Unidad Latina Lambda Upsilon Lambda Fraternity Incorporated, and we speak often with the brothers that are on the yard, and to see their dynamism, to see their commitment to education is inspiring. I would just welcome all the younger, you know, members of our association to understand that they should be very willing to cut their teeth and build their reputation in their fields so that they can find purpose, gain mastery, and then personify autonomy. You know, I know a lot of young people in my family and in my circle of influence, they want to be the boss. They want to be the owner. They want to be the owner operator. And in certain cases, they're unwilling to cut their teeth and build their professional acumen, build their reputation so that they can earn the opportunity to be autonomous, so that they can earn the opportunity to be independent. I'm not placing any sort of time parameter on that, but I would welcome you to think about that. Build your professional acumen and reputation. Find your purpose. Become skillful and masterful at what you love doing, and then do it independently. And doing it independently, in my humble view, is going to yield you the best results.
Hey, while Jesse might be going for the next question, I'll just say real quick, I dropped some links in the group chat as the gentlemen were talking, with information about investing for beginners from NerdWallet, the difference between being an LLC and an S Corp, and how you might go about establishing yourself as those things. So there's some running resources in the group chat on a lot of these topics that we've discussed this afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. I think it's been real informative, not just for, I hope, the audience, but for myself, as a father, as an alumnus, and someone who takes very seriously this subject. We touched on a lot, and I really appreciate your guys' time for taking your time to speak and come back home. That's what this is about. It's really about a brotherhood coming back home and giving the experiences in which you have, and hopefully those who paid attention and listened, that they were able to get something out of this conversation, and encourages them to have the conversations not just at home, but with their peers and their circles of influence. So as we get to know each other, we look to expand that and go beyond the books of Syracuse University and the education. So with that, I'd like to say I think you guys would agree that this has been an enjoyable and enlightening discussion. I really do think it was really powerful and impactful. So thank you all for our panelists, for your insights, and to our audience for their participation. And there were some questions, I'm sorry, that we weren't able to get to. But I hope you'll be joining us this evening, 7:30, 4:30 Pacific time, for our Time Has Come telethon, a fundraising extravaganza featuring alumni, VIPs, and the entertainment and special guests, and support our students. And did I mention, though, there's also an after party too. It wouldn't be CBT unless we continue celebrating into these wee hours. So please take time to celebrate and have a good time. And if you can't join us this evening, we hope that you can still consider supporting our multicultural advancement programs. We have a great night for everyone, and we really say thank you and enjoy the evening.
Thank you.
Take care, everybody.
Thank
Continue
you.
safe and well, you and yours.
Yeah, peace to everyone. Be safe.
Yes.
If you come down to Miami, call me. I'm in Miami. If you come down to Miami.
Numbers here. We got numbers and addresses. It's all good.
Yeah.
Hey, and if any of you guys want to have a good, authentic Puerto Rican cuisine experience, come to Barrio BX, 3764 East Tremont, the best
Sounds like a
bar
plan.
restaurant in the Bronx.
There you
I'll take you up on that. I'll take you up on that.
Hey,
Come on up.
Jason.
I'm here
Jason,
now.
make sure everybody on this panel can get each other's email, man, because I'd like to
Man.
stay in touch
That'll be
with everybody.
great.
Yeah.
We'll
man.
do that. I'll make sure I share everybody's information, and definitely when I'm back out east, I look forward to connecting with you guys. If you guys ever come out west to LA, let me know.
Absolutely.
Yeah, please.
Make a pit stop in Vegas. Take care.
Take care, everybody.
Hey, be well, guys.
Pleasure.
Be well, guys.
Okay.
Take care.
All right.
Take care, everyone.
Yeah, folks.